My name's Nicole Shebeck, and I work in ITS on the change management and the training development team. I did budget training for a lot of campus, done InfoPorte training, these demos, so you may have seen me kind of around at some different things. My street cred, you know, the reason I can kind of talk to you guys about this is that I've worked for the university for almost 8 years. So, you know, I always tell people, I know where you were, I know where you are, and I understand your pain, right? Like, that's kind of what I always tell folks, and I do. Like, I appreciated the SBM. I liked the ugly green screens, right? FRS worked fine for me, so, you know, I get it. So anyway, we're here today to talk about, you know, recon. So we've got a lot of stuff we're going to cover today. First of all, has anybody seen the Daily Tar Heel? Look, right? Weather holds. I'm not so sure, right? But at least we didn't have to cancel today. We've had to cancel the last couple of weeks. And this is you guys down here, campus accounting staff anxiously awaiting the recon demos. Isn't that exciting? You didn't know. It's a headline. You didn't see that in the paper today? Really? Oh, maybe it's just here. Who knew? All right. So here's what we're going to cover today. So we're going to kind of review where we are, where we've been. I'm going to give you guys some information about the new and improved information that you're seeing in InfoPorte. Hopefully some of it's just intuitive and you're looking at it and you're like, this already looks better, you know, but I want to make sure you understand what you see, you know, that you're able to digest it. I'm going to give you some guides for guidelines for reconciliation, and we're going to take about an hour to do that, and then in the last 30 minutes I'll take questions, okay? And I may give some answers, right? So we'll do some Q&A there. If you want to leave when we're finished with the PowerPoint, that's fine. Feel free to go ahead and head out. We'll take about, you know, a 15-second break, and we'll let you sort of hit the road, and then we'll start the Q&A. All right? So this is where we started in October when we had Go Live. InfoPorte 6.0 got its very first feed from Connect Carolina. And since then, there have been 3 major enhancements, or major versions that have come out with dozens and dozens of enhancements in each one of those versions. And the ones that I have listed here are the things that I think apply to you guys. You're here because you need to recon. So these are things I think would be helpful for you guys. Now, let me just go ahead and tell you, this will be posted after this session is over. It'll be available on the CC Info website after the session is over. And the handout is already on CC Info, okay? So we're sitting here in 6.3. Now that came out around the beginning of February, and there were a lot of changes, particularly to the transactions tab that helped us a lot. We went from 50 or so columns down to about 28, so a lot more, you know, a lot less information to have to digest. We added a description column, a transaction ID column that was specific to the type of transaction, and we added reference 1 and reference 2, things to kind of get it more in line to what we were accustomed to with the SBM, but really to help demystify these transactions so you could figure out what in the heck you were looking at when you were trying to do your recon, okay? So you have this in your handout. This is just one example, and this is the example of vouchers, okay? And so I have shots of transactions that you would see in InfoPorte based on the different transaction types, and I have the fields labeled for you, so you can look at that when you get back to the office, and as you're looking at your transactions, you can use that to understand what you're seeing. But we'll walk through this first one here. So in this case, we're looking at vouchers, and vouchers in Connect Carolina are going to be anything that has a transaction ID that begins with the letters AP. So in that gray column there, you can see it says AP_voucher. So, you know, that's easy. We know it says voucher, but if it starts with AP, it's considered a voucher, okay? So over here on the left side of the screen in the description column, that gives us our vendor ID and our vendor name, all right? The trans ID here in the middle, you have voucher ID and invoice number, and those are concatenated fields. When I say concatenated, I just mean they took one field and a second field and they stuck them together, okay? And they put them in the same column. That's all that means. They're in the same column, and they're separated by that little pipe there in the middle. So when you're looking at that, that's not just one long string. When you see that pipe there, those are, you know, two different fields that have been put together. All right. In reference 1, we have our payment reference and number, payment reference number, and we have the payment date. So if it was a check request, or excuse me, if they were paid by check, you'll have a check number. If it's ACH, then you would have that number. So depending on what type of payment, that determines the number that you have there. And then you have the payment date as well. And then reference to is not used on vouchers. There are places where it is used, but it's not used on vouchers. And that's indicated for you in your handout. So you'll know, you can go back and look at it, and you'll know it's not an error. There's not data missing. That's just not a field that's used for that type of transaction. Okay? All right. So here's where we are. As of, this is kind of where we've been since through the beginning of February or so. And then as of a week ago this past Monday, we had 6.3.1 implemented. And that is the big change that came on the ledger roll-up. So hopefully you guys got the email that came out on the Friday before it was released on Monday telling you that these changes were coming. There was a webinar that was held that Monday that walked you through the changes, some of the big changes to make sure that you were aware of them and familiar with how they work. Those are things that the training team is planning to do going forward. So to continue to do release notes, which came out in that email, and then to continue to do webinars when there are big changes like that. You know, little things here and there that you can just figure out. Go to the other door. There you go. Waiting for the shadow to leave. All right. There are some things you can figure out you don't need a webinar for, right? But some of the things when it's a big change, just to be able to walk you through those. So some of the efforts that the training team is undergoing. So there were some key changes in 6.3.1, and I want to make sure that you guys know what they are and that you understand what they mean for you, and that, you know, and again, you're able to look at it and make heads or tails of it. So let's go through those. So the first one is that the numbers you now see are correct. Right? Right? Your account balances are right. I know, right? Like, praise the Lord. Woo. So that's good news. You have a lot of red, lots and lots of red, and it wasn't really red, and you couldn't figure out why it was red, and it was just a mess, and now it's not. So yay! Now the numbers are right, okay? Now, I see y'all looking through your handouts. You're welcome to look through your handouts, but this isn't in your handout, so just up here. I'll let you know when you look in your handout. You won't need it again, so look at it when you get back to work. Okay. So anyway, your account balances are now right, and I'm going to walk you through how to read an account balance, or not really an account even, not just an account, but your fund balances. So I'm going to walk you through how to read those. The Ledger Rollup tab was reorganized. Okay, so now we have these header rows, like what you see right here, okay? So this fund, source, department, and program, these are the charges on that fund, source, department, and program. And you can tell what they are. Yay! That's good news, right? That's an advancement, all right? Accounts are now listed. This might be one of my favorites besides actually having good numbers. Accounts now are listed with their full value, and they have their detailed description. So no more like 53XXX supplies, 53XXX supplies. What the heck? Which set of supplies is it? They're all supplies. They're all five. What is this, right? No more of that, all right? So now you can see exactly what the account number is. You can see and we've got a lot of account numbers, and we got to learn them all. Don't you miss 2611? Don't you? I do. If I wanted to order pencils, I knew how to do that, right? I haven't the foggiest idea. I got to go look it up now to figure out what that number is. Okay? So we have that account number and that description. And these are hyperlinks, all right? So when you click on this, if we click here on 524110, that takes me to the transactions for that account number. Yay! Listen, I know it's cold and I know it's wet, but that's good news. And the group yesterday was happy about that. Thank you. Good Lord. I got to be here. Y'all got to be here. Let's do it together. Okay. Oh, well, what did that just happen? Hang on. There was craziness. 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 There we go. I did not hit that button that many times. I'm certain of it. All right. There we go. All right. So speaking of those hyperlinks, the Ledger Rollup tab now links directly to the Transactions tab. So, you know, again, if you click on the account number, you're going to be taken to just the transactions on that account number. But if you click on the header, okay, for that fund, source, department, and program, that takes you to all of the transactions for that fund, source, department, and program, or whatever combination of fields are being used in your header, okay? And when I say header, this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this gray bar that you see now at the top in InfoPorte when you're on the ledger roll-up. And you can see, look, this is the same fund, same source, same department, same program, okay? They're all there. It's like a window, like somebody's opened the curtains and there's some light that's been shed on this thing. It just makes sense now. All right, a couple other things I want to make sure you know about. One is that we now have account totals on the transaction screen, which is really nice. So whether you link directly to the Transactions tab from the Ledger Rollup, or whether you go to the Transactions tab directly and enter your search criteria, you'll now have totals on each of the accounts. One thing to note about that, you will see the totals on the screen, and you will see the totals in the PDF export, but the totals are not included in Excel. Excel is for raw data, okay, for people who've got to download lots of stuff and pivot and sum and do all sorts of fun things. But if you need the account totals, that's on the screen and that is in the PDF. All right, look at that. Did you see that? Have you noticed it yet? It used to be 25, and now we could only get up to 100, and now it's 500 by default. You know who you have to thank for that? My mama. Because she kept bugging me about it, and I said, other people probably have that issue too. You had my mama to thank for that. All right. The Ledger Rollup, 6.3.1. So those are some of the big changes. I want to make sure you understand them and that you're able to use them. Okay, so let's talk specifically about the Ledger Rollup. You understand account totals on the transaction screen. But I want to make sure you know how to read that balance when you're looking at the Ledger Rollup, because this really is kind of our first look into what Connect Carolina looks like. Not everybody's been going in and running the budgets overview inquiry, right? That's a place in Connect Carolina where you can kind of go and get an up to the second, a real-time balance. A lot of people don't even know how to do that, which is fine, because a lot of people should know. It's not a big deal. But this is our first kind of really look into what's happening. So I want to make sure you guys understand it. So we now have, on that Ledger Rollup tab, we now have our budget accounts and we have our detail accounts, okay? So this is really good because we didn't exactly have that before. We had a lot of 512XXX and 53 and just a lot of mess. And now we've got the information that we really need to be able to understand, what we're looking at, where we're spending, okay? So in this case, if you look at the top line, this is 511100. So, and it tells you, look, it's EPA non-teach budget, and you can see that's the budget. So they have $88,253 in budget, okay? So for EPA non-faculty. Now, underneath that are the detail accounts. So these transactions all come out of that budget. So that's why they're listed underneath. So you have your budget, and then anything that's spent on these categories, whether it's EPA non-teach on campus or the supplement, those are going to draw down this budget of $88,000. You follow me? Yeah? Yeah, because it makes sense. It's a lot easier to follow something that makes sense, isn't it? It really is. Okay. And then here you go, and you can see your totals right here on the bottom. So, and if we had our screen was big enough to go all the way across, you'd see your actuals year to date, your available balance, okay? And it would make sense to you. You'd be able to look at that, and you'd be able to pretty much do the math in your head. And we might not be able to do, dollars and cents down to the penny in our head, but you can look at 5 numbers, and you can, at your gut, tell whether those things add up or not, right? You're like, that doesn't make any sense. Or, oh yeah, that looks about right, right? You can kind of tell. But you can also add them up to the penny, and they will match now. So FYI, you can do both. Now, in this case down here, just want to make a point about this because you can see that this SPA overtime and the severance wages, they are part of the other SPA budget, okay? But we don't have a budget line above that. That's because there's not been a budget entered for other SPA budget, all right? So if there is a budget entered, you'll see it. All right? If there's not a budget entered, you won't see it. Same thing as if you didn't spend on one of those accounts, you wouldn't see it. You follow me? So it's just if you're saying, well, what pool, what budget pool do these things go into? You can find it on the subtotal line. It'll tell you. All right. And so in this case, when you get over here and you see your actuals of $10,000 and it says available balance negative $10,000, that's right, because you don't have a budget. You got $0 budgeted, but you spent $10,000. So it makes sense that you have negative $10,000, right? That makes sense to us. Okay. Just one little thing to point out. The word budget is in the description, okay? So you'll know it's a budget line because it says budget. And it's also in the subtotals down here, all right? Little point for you. Another way to see budget is just a budget line without an account. So I just want to make sure you know about this so it doesn't throw you off. So with F&A funds and some trust funds, we don't budget by account. So we budget, like with F&A funds, it's budgeted at the fund, the source, and the department. It's just like, here's your department's bucket of overhead, all right? And that's how we budget F&A. We don't care whether it's spent on personnel or supplies or travel or anything else. It's just your department's bucket of money, okay? And so when that happens, what you'll just see is a budget line here at the top. You won't have an account number. It'll just say budget. So you're going to see that always on F&A, and you will see that on certain trust funds, all right? Anybody here from dental faculty practice? Anybody? Okay. Hey, Monica. So that's how dental faculty practice works, because you guys don't budget on account, okay? And then the trust one, we have some additional sources. So anything in the $46,000 to the $48,999 range, all right? So when you're looking at your sources, $46,000 to $48,999, anything in that range doesn't budget on account, all right? And those are mostly contract trusts, so like our old 666 accounts in FRS. That's by and large what that is. All right. Okay, signs. I told the group yesterday, it's like every time I see this, I want to just do like signs. I sing. I'm a singer. No, I am, really. I sing. I didn't say I sang well. I just said I sang. Okay. So the majority of the time, what you're going to see are negative signs on revenue and positive signs on expense. All right, I don't think that's too much of a mind bender. That's how it was in FRS, and that's how it is in Connect Carolina. So, and I say the majority of the time because you've got an expense and it's a positive, but if you have to back that expense out and transfer it, then it becomes a negative, right? So that's, but the majority of the time, that's what you're going to see. So in this actuals year-to-date column, and you would see this in the other columns, but I had to kind of cut parts of the screen out so we can make sure things are big enough to see. Here's your revenue, and you can see your signs are negative, your expense signs are positive, but they flip those signs on the available balance so that you can see you actually have $112,000 in revenue. All right, you've had $2,000 in expenses, not $2,000 in credits, right? And so the math works right. 6.4, which is coming out, they're shooting for March 16th, I was told this morning, or I actually heard it this morning. 6.4 will have grand totals, all right? So that this would then say, $110,000 and like $700 or whatever. Okay. Again, I can't really do the math in my head, but y'all follow me. Okay. So the accounting period, this is important because this works completely differently than it did before. And the accounting period on the Ledger Rollup tab works differently than it does on the Transactions tab, okay? So I need to make sure you understand, how they're working, all right? So on the Ledger Rollup tab, you can only choose one accounting period at a time, all right? It won't let you click on multiple. You can only click on one. So in this example, I selected January, all right? And what that returns to me, so I put my filters in and I choose January and I hit search, and this is what it returns. It gives me my budget, my encumbrances, pre-encumbrances, my actuals year-to-date. That is everything fiscal year-to-date through the end of January, okay? So 7/1 through 1/31 If I had selected February, it would be 7/1 through 2/28. You follow me? Now on the right side of the screen, you're going to see two new columns you haven't seen before. So we have the budget month to date. Well, you've seen the actuals month to date, but we have budget month to date and actuals month to date. Those are specific to January. Okay? So budget month to date, very, very often you're going to just see zeros. Don't be thrown off by that. What that means is that would be a total of any budget journals in either increasing or decreasing or any budget transfers. Okay? So, F&A funds, you're probably transferring all over the place, but a lot of things don't get moved that much. So you might just always have lots of zeros in there, especially if you only do budget, right at the beginning of the year. All right, but that's what that is. That would be the sum of any budget activity in that month. And then your actuals month to date, those are all the expenses that you had in the month of January. You follow? So it just works differently. Now, on the transactions tab, you can pick as many months as you want, right? You can go July all the way through. Here we are in March. You can kind of mix it and match it and do how you want to. Because that's really more of a wide open sort of query page. You can kind of get at anything you need there. But on that transactions tab, that's where you want to make sure you're grabbing just the month that you want for recon. Because otherwise, then you got to filter through a whole bunch of mess, right? But I just want to make sure you're aware that it does work differently from one screen to the other. Yeah. So it's life to date for OSR. OSR has the OSR Ledger Rollup. It's a different tab. And so what you would see for OSR would be life to date. So instead of fiscal year to date, it's life to date. But then the actuals would be for that, the actuals month to date would still be for that current month. Yep. That is so funny. Not one person asked me about that yesterday. I'm going to take questions at the end, so let me just kind of get through this. Well, forget it. Ask me, Sarah. What's up, girl? Okay. That's right. That's right. Yep. That's right. But if you leave this empty, you just don't select anything, then you're going to get year to date. So that month to date would still be March, right? But yeah. So if you need a current, where are we today, you can just leave it blank. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hadn't planned to. What's your question? She asked me, was I going to talk about selecting fiscal years? On the OSR Ledger Rollup. That's not true. They didn't make any changes to the fiscal years there. So you'll need to look at your filters, but with the OSR Ledger Rollup, by default, they have fiscal years 13, 14, and 15 selected, so that when you search, it gives you that life to date. And so it's possible that your search filters have changed, your your fiscal year filter has changed, but you should look at that. But that should not have changed. Yes. Okay. No, that should not have changed. And if you go back and you look at that and you find that that is indeed the case, put in a help ticket. All right. So on that Ledger Rollup, we have dynamic search filters now, which means the filters that you see on the screen will change based on what type of fund you're looking at. And I want to point this out to you because it can make you think you're crazy, and you might be. But you're not crazy because this is changing, right? So I just want to make sure you know what to expect to see. So in this example up here, I have state funds selected, so you can look there in that ledger on the top left, and you can see it says state. And the filters that I have available to me are the filters on which I can budget, okay? So I have fund, source, department, account, and program, all right? A lot of you budget on program. If you're in the College of Arts and Sciences, you absolutely budget on program. Other people may or may not, but those are available. That's why it's there, okay? Now, with F&A, you'll notice that account is gone, all right? So on the far right side of the screen under business unit, you don't have account anymore. Because remember, I just told you we don't budget by account on F&A, so it's not there. All right, so you'll see your account detail. It just won't be in that header field, that chart field string, okay, because we don't budget that way. Now, trust funds give you all sorts. I don't even want trust funds, right? Yeah. Trust funds, sometimes, I just get to clicking, and I don't really know if it's moving the way I think it is. Trust funds give you all sorts of options, all right? So you have fund, source, department. You've got program, cost code 1, cost code 2. Here's where it can get confusing because this screen is all things to all trust funds, and not all trust funds are created equal, all right? So we have 5 different sets of trust funds, all right? Most of campus lives in what's Trust 2 world, and Trust 2, that's our default trust. Most people have it, and that means that what you use or have the option to use for your budgets are program and cost code 3, okay? Now, remember I was talking about Trust 1 earlier. I was saying you don't budget on account, that $46,000 to $48,999 range. They don't have any, they just have fund, source, and department. So they can't even though this is the screen they use, they don't see program, they won't see anything by cost codes. Athletics, are you here? Hey friends. So for you guys, because you have cost code 1 in program, you'll be able to use cost code 1 in program. All right, but cost code 3, if you tried to use it, it's not going to work for you because it doesn't apply to your athletics rule set. Okay. So student affairs. Anybody? Student affairs. Hey friends, how are y'all? Okay. So with your rule set, you guys have programs, and there's the debate about getting cost code 3 in there. So you can turn program on and off. Okay. So it just depends on your rule set. So you just kind of have to know if you're in a particular rule set. If you don't know, that means you're Trust 2. All right? If you're like, I don't know what the heck this woman is even talking about, now I'm confused. Everything sounds okay, and now I'm confused. Just Trust 2, trust me, Trust 2, and then know that you can use program and you can use cost code 3. I mean, really and truly, that's your rule of thumb. You'll be fine. All right. So that toggle button, when I say you can use it, what am I talking about? You can turn it on or you can turn it off, okay? So when you go to the screen, by default, it's on. The data, the information, I get my hand popped when they use the word data. I've told it's a cold term. The information that you see on the screen is based on what we have in Connect Carolina. So that's what you're going to see by default, okay? So you'll see programs and cost codes if you're using them. All right. Now, it's blue. You'll notice these are blue. When you turn them off, they're gray, okay? But now listen, when you turn them off, you can click on this all day long. That doesn't turn it off. You got to click on it and then hit search, okay? So if you're turning them on or turning them off, click on the button and then hit search, and that runs the report differently. All right, so keep that in mind. What is she even talking about? Let me show you. So you go in and you run your report. You've got this fund, source, department, and you've got these programs. You may have just gone in and put in state funds and chose department, and you get all of these things back, right? Well, that's fine. You spent on program, but you don't budget on program. In this case, it's the college, so they do. But you spend on program, but you don't budget on program, and you really need to see everything at that fund, source, department level. You don't want to have to add up all those programs to get your total. You need to get that out of there, right? So what you would do is click on that program button that's blue, make it gray, hit search, and then here's what happens. All of this information then comes into this one set of totals. See? It's the same fund, source, department, and program's gone. So now it's taken, what could be many, many different sets of chart field strings, and it's collapsed them. It's moved that program out so that now everything's totaled at that fund, source, department level. You follow me? Okay? That's real handy because what you're going to see is how we budget and how we spend. That's how Connect Carolina allows us to budget and how we spend. But you might not budget at program, but if you spend at program, you're going to see it. You might not budget on cost code 3, but if you're spending school medicine, if you're spending on cost code 3, every time you put that faculty member's PID, MPID, in cost code 3, it's going to bring you another line. All right? And Lord knows that's not what you want. So you're going to take that cost code 3 off so that you can see it at fund, Force Department program or, you know, without program. You follow me?